Hey friends, are you using a crusty syntax highlighter? Well, don't worry, today we're going to learn how to use a modern syntax highlighter like Shiki. And what makes Shiki so special? Well, if you aren't aware of what Shiki is, let's go here to the introduction. And Shiki is a Japanese word for style, and it's a beautiful and powerful syntax highlighter based on text-made grammar and themes. So this is the same engine that powers VS Code syntax highlighting. And why is this important? Well, if you use a syntax highlighter in the past, you know how limiting they are. So you get some styles or a theme that you can copy over, and that's basically all of the tokens that you get access to. But unlike those syntax highlighter, using Shiki, you can straight up load a VS Code theme directly or use one of the existing themes. And we can even read the docs from VS Code about tokenization. So VS Code tokenization engine is powered by text-made grammars. And if you look at what text-made grammars are here, we can actually see that this looks very familiar if you ever worked on a custom theme or something. This is basically what a text-made grammar is. So you don't have to worry about styles and those other things. You can just load up a theme and that's basically it. And if you, like me, maybe have some bad experiences with Shiki, that's a thing of the past because Shiki was recently completely rewritten from scratch. So you can go to this post if you want and read about how they've done it, which is all going to be linked in the description, but it's very fascinating, right? And the biggest problem with Shiki in the past is that it just didn't want to play nice with ECMAScript modules, which is a thing of the past since it works perfectly. It's built from the ground up to work with ES modules. And it runs anywhere where JavaScript runs. And as if Shiki wasn't awesome enough, you also have great projects around Shiki that sprung up like Shiki Magic Move, so you can use Shiki to animate code blocks like this. So I can say toggle example and it's going to animate this code block very easily. And Shiki Magic Move is just a simple low-level library which you can pass Shiki as a highlighter to. And if I search for it quickly and go to Shiki Magic Move here, and we can even see here in their example, they have a Vue renderer and React renderer, and I also made a pull request recently to include a Svelte renderer, so let's hope that this gets included, because it would be really awesome to use this inside of Svelte. If you look at Shiki Magic Move, for example, they right now support this framework agnostic, so you can use it with vanilla JavaScript, but it's a bit more lower level, so you're probably going to use a wrapper for it for Vue and React, but I hope the Svelte one is also going to be added soon, so we can all enjoy using it. And that's basically it for the introduction to Shiki. Shiki is really awesome, and in this video I'm going to show you the basic Shiki API, so how you can use it standalone, how you can use it inside Markdown using some integrations, how you can write your own transformers. And if this sounds interesting to you, don't forget to like and subscribe, and you can also support me by becoming a patron. Alright, so with that out of the way, let's get started. Alright friends, in this video I'm going to use Svelte, but Shiki is framework agnostic, even you can use it with vanilla JavaScript, right? So it really doesn't matter if you use Svelte with MDSX or React with MDX, you can pass Shiki easily as a rehype plugin, which we're going to look at later. So here, if you go to installation, how to set it up, this is really simple. So you can just use the package manager of your choice. You can say npm install /d for development dependency Shiki, and that's basically it. You're good to go. You can also use it over a CDN, but I don't recommend that you do it. And then later we're going to look at some of these integrations. So we're going to see it has a Markdown plugin. You can use a rehype plugin. There's a plugin for Shiki Twoslash. There's even a plugin for the Monaco editor, which is really ironic because VS Code is based on Monaco, and Monaco doesn't support the text-made grammar that VS Code does. So that's something really interesting. You can use it over CLI, and we're also going to look how to make your own transformers, which you're going to see what they are later. But yeah, that's basically it for the setup. Okay, so next we're going to look how we can use Shiki standalone using this shorthand code to HTML. So you can see how simple this is. We can just use this function code to HTML, then we can specify the language and the theme, and then after that we're going to see how we can create our own custom highlighter like this. So this is something that you can do because by default Shiki is going to dynamically load the themes, but if you want to create a highlighter and export this by specifying all of the themes and languages in advance, this is something that I'm going to show you how to do. Alright, but before I get ahead of myself, let's look at the first example. So using these shorthands, so we can just import this function code to HTML, and here I'm inside a simple Svelte project. As I said, this is framework agnostic, nothing here is specific to Svelte. I'm going to use this immediately invoked function expression, and then I'm going to use this add HTML directive in Svelte to output HTML that you're going to get from Shiki. That's basically it. So basically now I can go here, I can just reassign HTML, I can say await code to HTML, this should get imported from Shiki. Now we can pass our code, and we can also pass some options here. Alright, so now for the language, I can say TypeScript, but you can specify whatever you want here, right? And then you can see how TypeScript is really helpful. It's telling us, hey, you should specify also a theme, right? And I get asked this question a lot, hey, which theme do you use? And I use point managers, right? And this is basically it. So now it's going to stop complaining. And this is the beautiful part about Shiki. We didn't have to import some theme. We can just use a VS Code theme straight up. How beautiful is this, friends? And if there is a theme here that is not supported, you can just dynamically import it. So basically, if you go back here, let's say if you want to explore these themes using TypeScript, you can get completion here. You can see all of the supported themes out of the box, right? And it just happens that point managers is one of those themes. All right, so now if I save this, and I'm even going to log HTML out like this. Alright, so now if we go back, I can just go here to where I have my development server running, and you can see here everything looks beautifully. Here is the HTML that we generated from that code string, right? And this is how beautiful and simple this is using Shiki. So now if we inspect it, we can actually see that we get these spans with styles, colors, and etc. So now you can use this inside your editor. And also, of course, this really isn't smart to use Shiki on the client side like this. It's really not that heavy, but actually let me just see here. If we look at it, so it's going to load, of course, the language, which is going to take up a bunch of resources. So for example, here you have for the simple text 2.2 megabytes. And of course, you're not going to use Shiki on the client. If you're using, for example, a framework like SwellKit, Next.js, and etc., you're going to process this code on the server and send it. Probably you have a blog or something, right, where you're generating static content. You're just going to pre-render this during build time. So you're not going to actually ship Shiki to the client. But if you have to, you can also do that, and there's a bunch of ways you can make your bundle lighter if that's something you have to do. You can actually make a specific bundle that only has one type of language that you want to use, and etc. So the size is actually going to be really small. Okay, but if you don't want Shiki to dynamically load themes and languages, and you just want to create a highlighter that you want to reuse, for example, if you use Shiki Magic Move, it expects you to create a Shiki highlighter and just pass it the highlighter. So basically, let me show you how you can do this very simply. So I'm going to delete this line and I'm going to create a highlighter here. So I'm going to say const highlighter, and this is the hardest word to spell for me, I swear. And we can say await and import get highlighter from Shiki. Boom, that's how simple that is. And now we can specify some options here. So we can pass it this object and we can say themes, for example. So now we can specify themes inside of array which you want. For example, I want point managers, but you can include more themes. And you can also include more languages. So for example, inside of an array, I'm going to include TypeScript, but maybe I also want Svelte, which is really simple to do. All right, so now you have this highlighter and you don't need to use code to HTML. You're just going to invoke code to HTML from the highlighter itself. All right, and now here, I can just go here and we can use our highlighter. Okay, so we can say highlighter code to HTML, and now everything should work the same as before. And here we also have to specify the language and the theme, but if you use something that you didn't specify here in the highlighter, you're going to get an error because you're only loading things in advance, and those are the things that you can use, right? And let me just also make this more readable, so we can do something like this. Now it's going to auto format. Even if I refresh it, everything looks great. Alright, so now you know how to use Shiki standalone using the shorthands, and you know how to create your own custom syntax highlighter. Alright, but let's say that you have a light and dark theme. So how can you include more themes? Well, you can use dual themes like here. So instead of specifying a theme, you can specify a themes object and you can pass in a light and dark theme like this. So let's see how easy peasy lemon squeezy this is. And remember, because we're creating a custom highlighter here, we have to specify our themes in advance. So let's look at something like GitHub Lite, for example, and that's basically it. So now here I'm going to include, instead of themes, actually theme, I'm going to say themes, and now we can specify light. So I'm going to say GitHub Lite, and then I'm going to say for the dark one, we can say point managers, like this, boom. And now we're going to see the one that should be used by default is GitHub Lite. So we're going to go here and let me refresh, and you're going to see it works beautifully. And now if we go here, you can see here in the spree tag, it's Shiki, Shiki themes, GitHub Lite, point managers. So you're going to see all of it works. So you can actually toggle this however you want. Again, you can use query-based, so you can use prefers color scheme, dark, or whatever else you want. Then you can use this to swap the CSS variables, or you can use class-based dark mode. So you can specify whatever you want, HTML.dark, whatever, and then you can change the CSS variables, and that's basically it. But what if you're like me, for example, and you have multiple themes? So here on my site, for example, I have this night theme, I have this daylight theme, I have this night owl theme, and night mine theme. But how can I include more than one theme in Shiki? And that's basically something also that's very easy to do. So you can specify multiple themes like this. You can just go to themes and you can specify whatever else you want here. So for example, they're using light, dark, and dim. And since you're specifying multiple themes, you have to specify a default one. And you can even change the prefix here. So for example, instead of saying dash dash shiki dash, you can say dash dash meow banana or whatever else you want, right? Okay, so let's see how this works. And then let's add another theme here. So you can say GitHub, let's see which one do they have, GitHub dark dimmed. Actually make sure that you don't make a mistake because we have to specify these themes in advance. So we can go here and we can say dimmed. We can specify the same theme here. And now we can also give it a default color, and let's use the dim one by default. So let's save this and we're going to go back here and you're going to see everything works beautifully. So now, for example, you can specify dark, so it's going to use point managers again, and you're going to see everything works great. And that's really how simple that is to do. And you can, of course, go further. Let me see this theme colors manipulation. You can also read this in the docs if you want. So you can change colors however you want. You can use different values and etc. There's really a lot to it, but yeah, that's basically the basics of it. You can use CSS variables to change anything else that you want. Alright, so let me show you how you can add Shiki as a rehype plugin so you can syntax highlight your code blocks in Markdown. And that's really simple as installing the Shiki.js/rehype package. That's basically it. And here they're using a unified example. You really don't have to know how this works. The only thing you have to do, you're probably going to use something like mdswex or mdx, and then you're just going to pass rehype Shiki with some options, and that's basically it. But actually, if you're curious, let me just explain to you how this works. So basically, when you're using unified, remark parse is going to turn this into a Markdown abstract syntax tree. Then this gets turned into a HTML abstract syntax tree. Then it does some magic with those nodes, right? It's basically just a tree representation of the data. And then at the end, it's going to just spit out a HTML string. And this is the same setup I have in my project, just because I'm lazy. So here I have this simple code example using Svelte, nothing special. I'm just escaping backticks here. I'm going to show you how to enable line highlighting and line numbers. So you're going to see everything works great. So this is just the same thing they have. And if I go here to the route, you're going to see we're just going to have this markdown string here. Alright, cool. So let's add syntax highlighting using Shiki. So first, you're going to import the rehype plugin. So you're going to say rehype Shiki from, and then we're going to say Shiki.js at rehype. And that's basically all we have to do. So now where we convert this here to an abstract HTML tree, so now we can work with those nodes, we can use this plugin here. We're going to say use rehype Shiki, and then let's pass it some options. So because we're already specifying the language here, we don't have to do that. We can just specify our theme here, and that's basically it. Alright, so now here I'm going to say theme, which is going to be point managers. Let's save this and everything should work. Alright, so now we get beautiful syntax highlighting. And if we inspect this, we can see that this is true. So now we get all of this beautiful syntax highlighting using Shiki in our Markdown. So again, you don't have to worry about unified. You just need to pass this Shiki rehype plugin. And I also mentioned it before, but in this section, you actually have these instructions how to make a fine-grained bundle if you want to ship Shiki to the client, or maybe you want it to be smaller even if you use it on the server. So here you can read through the docs how you can do that. So you're going to get a specific Shiki syntax instance that just has the themes and languages that you want to use. So basically, you don't have to worry about that. Alright, so let me show you how you can easily add line highlighting and line numbers. So for example, you may be hunting in a documentation and then you find this section line highlight, but this is just some notice about this feature being deprecated, and instead we're going to use one of the transformers here. So for example, Shiki provides these useful transformers that you can use. You can get them by installing this package at shiki.js/transformers. So you get a bunch of useful transformers. For example, maybe you want notation diffing here. Let me show you how this looks like. So you can use this exclamation mark code minus minus or exclamation code plus plus. Then you get an output like this. If this is something you're interested in, then you can use this transformer for highlighting specific words, lines, and etc. But I actually want the classic one where you can just specify numbers. See this awesome one, it has even this focus that you can use. So you can use this if you're interested in this. But yeah, I'm actually curious about this one where it is transform meta highlight. So this is the classic one. So highlight lines based on the meta string provided on the code snippet. So we can actually specify this language here, and then we can just tell it what lines to highlight. And that's basically it. So I already installed this package and I'm going to show you now how you can use this. And it's really simple. So now I'm going to go back to our code. I already have this specified. I'm going to select this line here and I'm going to select this line here. So 2 and 6. And then we can just go here and import it. So I'm going to say import, and let me just do it like this so I get proper completion. So we can say Shiki.js transformers, and now we should get great completion here. All right, so now we can see what we have available. And I want transformer meta highlight, like this, boom. Let me also copy it over so I don't make a mistake. And the only thing you have to do is include it like a plugin. So here we have theme, and then you can say transformers, so you can include Optimus Prime or whatever else you want here. So you can just specify an array, then let's just include this, and you have to invoke it, and you're done. And you can save this, and you're going to see it doesn't work, because when we refresh it, it's going to look the same, but why it is? Because you have to include your own styles. So here, if we inspect it, we can actually see, let me just collapse this, you can see actually line 2 is highlighted, and line 6 is highlighted. And also let me show you something interesting. So because we have here a class line, we can actually use CSS counters to create line numbers. And that's going to be really simple. I'm going to show you how I've done it. You can do this very easily yourself. So let me just open this to the side. I'm going to open this app.css. You're going to see I have some default styles here, nothing special. So here for the pre, I specify tab size 4, otherwise it's 4 by default. So we're going to see it actually going to look spaced out. So default is 4, I specify 2, and that's basically it. So here I'm just going to remove this dot because I'm going to target code. I'm just going to display gridded so it looks nicer. Then I'm going to specify this font family with the font I use, nothing to it. And then since we're using lines, so we can start the counter increment here. So we're going to say count line. And then for every line which is not the last, we're going to create this before. And then we're just going to pass this counter to the content. That's basically it. And now I have some padding, opacity, and here for highlighted, I included this class is going to be some background color, which is going to use this highlight CSS variable. All right, so now if I save this and I go back to the code, you're going to actually see everything works great. All right, so this is how simple it is to include line highlighting and line numbers.
Pause the tape. Hey friends, it's me from the future, and I forgot to talk about one awesome Shiki integration, which is Twoslash. Well, basically you can use the TypeScript compiler information to show hints in your code block. So for example, here I have this boring code block, and let's say that you want to show more information. When you hover this, you can see additional information like you get in your editor. Well, you can use Twoslash for that. So for example, let me show you how this looks like. So here is the input code. So you can just define your code block like this, and then we can actually see the rendered output by Shiki Twoslash. And now you can see when I hover over a value, I'm going to get extra information just like you see in your editor. And how beautiful is this, friends? And this is very simple to set up in Shiki. This is just a transformer. So you can install it by saying npm i/d at shiki.js/Twoslash. And then you can just pass the transformer to Shiki. As you can see, they're also using Twoslash in their code example, so you get this rich information. And then you're also going to have to include some styles, which they have here, so you can do that. And then you can get this rich information in your code blocks. Alright, and that's it. So past me, take over.
Okay, before I show you transformers, I want to show you another cool feature of Shiki, and that is decoration. So you can go here to the docs and decorations. So other decorations, basically decorations are an API which allows you to wrap custom classes and attributes around ranges of your code. So for example, here we can specify decorations, and you can specify the range. So you can tell it the line and even the characters, and then you can say, okay, add this class or whatever. So let me show you how this looks like in practice. I'm going to close this, and I'm going to go to this decorations example. Again, same as before code I'm using code to HTML here to keep it simple. And here I have just this global class banana, which is really nothing special. So actually, let me just go to that route. So I'm going to go to decorations here. You're going to see everything works the same as before, but maybe in this case, we actually want to highlight the word banana. So how can we do that? Let me actually show you. Okay, and then after theme, we're going to add decorations, and then we're just going to pass in an array. So now we're going to start an object, and then I'm going to keep it simpler. We can just say start 4. So this is the 4th character. And we're going to say 10. And then for properties, we can just specify the class that we want to add here. All right, so I'm going to say class banana. So that's going to be it. So now this class should apply starting at the 4th and ending at the 10th character. So that should be our banana word. Okay, so now we go here and we're actually going to see that this works as expected. So now you can highlight this word like this. You can see we added this class banana. How beautiful is this, friends? And that's basically it for decorations. You can use them like that, and you can also use them as part of transformers, which are really powerful. And that's what we're going to look at in the next part. Alright, so let's look at one of the most powerful features of Shiki, which are transformers. So again, Shiki uses HAST, which is an AST format for HTML, to process the result and generate the HTML. you can provide your own transformers to customize the generated HTML by manipulating that exact tree. So let me actually show you in their example. So you just have to specify transformers, and here you can get access to one of these parts, code, line, span. But let me actually show you, this is what you have access to. So you have access to these transformer hooks. So you can hook into pre-process, tokens, the spans, line, code, the pre-tag, root, and post-process. And then we're also going to make our own simple transformer. So we're going to use this meta. For example, we're going to specify show line numbers true and false. And based on that, we're going to add a class to the code tag. So I'm super excited to show you how awesome and powerful that is. All right, so let's go back to our Markdown example. And this is a common use case I have in my blog, for example. So here, let me just open again this Markdown file. So I have this code block in my Markdown. And for example, I say show line numbers, and this is going to toggle the line numbers on and off. All right, so basically what I want to do, I want a way to add a class or something here, so I can use that class, and based on that, I can decide to show or hide the line numbers. So we're going to add it here to the code, and that's going to be it. All right, so actually this is something really simple. And if we go here to the Shiki documentation, I actually want to show you how I learned about this. So you can actually go back to that section, common transformer, so you can actually go to the GitHub, and reading the source code is the best thing you can do. So for example, here we can go to source transformers, and we can look at the transformers meta highlight, which we used previously, right? And let me show you how actually easy peasy lemon squeezy this is. So again, this looks familiar. It is just a function that we can use, and then we can just return the name of it, and then we can use this line, and then we can change the meta. And that's basically it, nothing special. So again, if you want to learn how these things work, you have to look at the source code. But I'm actually going to show you how simple that is. All right. So now let's go back here, and I'm just going to create this function line. You can name this wherever you want. So this is going to be our transformer line, and then we're going to return same as before. So let's give it a name. I'm going to give it a name line. Cool. And what we want to change in our case, we want to change the code element, so we can also get a reference to the node. That's basically it. And let me actually show you something cool. So you can log, you can say this options, and let's also use the plugin so you don't forget about this. So you can include another one here. And also let me use a type here, so you can say Shiki transformer. Boom. All right, so now you get great auto completion. Now we're going to see, when we look at here, we're going to get this object. So here we have these options, background, foreground language, and here is the meta. So you can see some familiar things here. You get this line number, show line numbers. This is called the meta. They also explain it in the documentation, so you can look at everything that's inside of here. And let me actually show you something cool. So for example, if you say this .meta, you're actually going to see the processed array for our line highlighting. So this is from the other plugin or extension, transformer, whatever you want to call it, Optimus Prime, right? So that's actually the thing that it gets, and you can actually read the source code yourself to understand how it works. But yeah, basically you can see it here. So the only thing we have to do here, we have to add something to this meta object. All right, so let me just delete this line, and I'm going to create this meta value. So we can say this options.meta, and let's actually, because it might not exist, let's use question mark. And then we can say raw, I think. And let's actually log this out so you don't make a mistake, like this meta. And we should also get the same thing out. Let's see. And boom, it works. That's it. All right. So we can say, hey, if meta doesn't exist, then just yeet. I wish there was a keyword yeet. It would be so funny. Okay, let's just say return, and that's basically it. All right, cool. So now we just need to check if this show line number exists or doesn't. So we can say const show line numbers. Boom. And here it already is. So we can say meta includes. If it includes or doesn't show line numbers, then we know, right? And now based on that, we can just add the class that we want, or we can even add it to the meta object if you want, so you can use it somewhere else. Cool. So we can say if show line numbers, like that, and we can just say this add class to HAST. We can pass it the node, or we can give it something like show line numbers, but this is up to you. And again, you can also use the data attribute the same as we've done it before. All right, cool. So now if we save this, let me just refresh for good measure. Cool, so let me just inspect this, and you can see how beautiful is this, friend. So now inside of code here, we have this class. So now we can go back to our CSS if we want, and we can toggle the line numbers on or off if we want. And let's see if this actually works. So now when I remove this, there shouldn't be anything here. So we have this pre here, and cool, there is nothing on this code tag. How beautiful is this, friends? Alright friends, that's it. If you like what you've seen, don't forget to like and subscribe, and you can also support me by becoming a patron. Thank you for watching, and catch you in the next one. Peace.